My parents mocked me for being just a mechanic and sold the house I built for them to my brother. 5 years later, they received an invitation to the grand opening of the factory that owned their new street. Chapter 1. The wrench in my hand. I still remember the day I handed Dad the keys, not to a car, but to the house I built with my bare hands. I was 26, greasy from working 12-hour shifts at the auto shop, but every spare dollar, every blister and bruise, every nail and tile, I put into that house. For them. Just a mechanic. Mom used to scoff at family dinners. Your brother's in finance. You fix engines. There's a difference. I never argued. I just kept showing up with parts, building supplies, and quiet dedication. I installed solar panels, hand-built their porch swing, and lined the garden with red bricks, Dad's favorite. When I handed over the deed, Dad raised an eyebrow. You're giving this to us? I built it for you. He nodded. But I saw it. The quiet judgment behind his eyes. The same one I'd seen for years. Not enough. Not like your brother. They moved in the next week. And I moved on. Or tried to. But 2 months later, I came by to fix a busted pipe. The gate code didn't work. Inside I found unfamiliar shoes by the door. And my older brother lounging in my living room. They sold it to me, he said, smirking. Market's crazy. Guess they figured you wouldn't mind. You're a mechanic, not a lawyer. Dad came in, arm around my brother. It's all in the family, right? He said. Mom didn't even look up from her wine glass. That night, I packed my tools into the back of my truck, drove across state lines, and never looked back. But I made myself one promise. I'll build something else, bigger, smarter. And one day, they'll drive down a road they don't own, with my name on every sign. Chapter 2, The Rust and the Blueprint. I spent the next 5 years surrounded by rust, oil, and silence. I rented a rundown workshop in a forgotten corner of a dying industrial town. The roof leaked. The tools were secondhand. The customers were few. But that was fine, because I wasn't building cars anymore. I was building something bigger. I'd always loved machines, but not just fixing them, designing them, improving them. I started sketching on cardboard boxes, then migrated to AutoCAD and YouTube tutorials at night. I studied automation, robotics, and lean production systems, quietly, relentlessly. By year 2, I'd built my first prototype, a modular engine mount that cut truck downtime in half. It wasn't flashy, but local fleets noticed. A distributor offered me a deal. By year 3, I'd filed for a patent. By year 4, I had my first investor, a guy from Boston who said, "You think like an engineer, but grind like a mechanic." By year 5, I had 7 utility patents, a small but growing team of engineers, and enough capital to break ground on something I had dreamt of since I was 14, a state-of-the-art manufacturing plant owned by me, designed by me, and built not far from the very street my parents sold out from under me. Why that location? Because it sat on a patch of forgotten industrial land, a dead zone with low taxes, cheap property, and one convenient detail the realtors overlooked. The neighborhood my parents now lived in, the very street my brother bragged about owning, backed directly into that industrial zoning buffer. They hadn't read the fine print, but I had. And by the time the permits cleared and the steel framework rose over the tree line, they were about to find out who really owned the street they laughed from. Chapter 3, The Street They Thought Was Theirs. The first time my parents noticed the construction site, they were sitting on the porch of the house they stole from me. They sipped coffee while trucks rumbled past their front yard, kicking up dust. At first, they assumed it was some city project, maybe a road widening or warehouse expansion. My brother, always confident, laughed it off. Probably just another junkyard. This area's full of them, but the walls kept rising. Steel beams, loading docks, office windows, security fencing. Then came the sign, Ashfield Precision Systems, in bold black lettering mounted on a brushed steel plate facing their street. They Googled it. Nothing came up, yet. We were still in stealth mode, but 2 weeks before our grand opening, our press release hit the local papers. $18 million manufacturing facility to bring over 100 jobs to Ashfield, led by former local mechanic. The article featured a photo of me in a tailored black suit, standing in front of the nearly completed facility, holding a hard hat under one arm. My name was in the headline, my face on their morning paper. My brother apparently turned red, threw the paper, and stormed inside. My parents? They didn't call, they didn't text. They just watched silently for the next 2 weeks. As the final paving finished, the landscaping was completed, and crews installed gleaming white letters on the side of the building. Ashfield Precision Systems, founded by Miles Carter. They watched trucks roll into their street, carrying crates with my company's logo. They watched contractors inspect their side fence, now bordering the employee parking lot. And 3 days before our ribbon cutting, they received a thick, cream-colored envelope in their mailbox. It was sealed with a silver wax stamp. They opened it and read, "You are cordially invited to the private grand opening of Ashfield Precision Systems. Dress code, formal. Location, directly behind your home. Suggested arrival, before the speeches begin. Signed, Miles Carter, CEO." Chapter 4, The Speech They Couldn't Ignore. The day of the grand opening was crisp and bright. The kind of morning where the sun felt earned after weeks of cold. Hundreds of guests arrived. Local officials, industry partners, reporters, former classmates, mechanics I once worked beside. Cameras flashed. A string quartet played softly in the background. Servers handed out glasses of champagne as visitors toured the massive production floor. But my eyes stayed on one spot. The corner lot across the fence. My parents stood in their backyard. My father in a wrinkled button-down. My mother in a cardigan she used to wear to church. My brother wasn't there. They didn't step inside. Didn't even wave. But they watched. I waited until they were in full view before stepping onto the stage beneath the banner that read, Ashfield Precision Systems. Built with hands, heart, and honor. The audience quieted. The cameras rolled. I took a breath. When I was 19, I bought my first set of tools with change I saved from after-school oil changes. When I was 24, I welded the beams of a house with my own hands. That house became a gift. A gift to people I loved. And when that gift was taken from me, I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I left with nothing but calloused hands and a blueprint in my head. The crowd leaned in. My parents froze. Today, 5 years later, I welcome you to the first of many Ashfield facilities, standing on the very land where I first learned what betrayal feels like and what building something better truly means. Soft gasps. Then applause. To everyone who ever felt like just something, just a mechanic, just a worker, just a nobody, let this place be your answer. I lifted my hand toward the audience. And to the people who taught me my greatest lesson, thank you. I didn't name them. I didn't need to. Every eye turned toward the fence line. My parents stood silently, pale and motionless. My father's hand trembled. My mother's lips parted, but no words came. I gave a slight bow, turned, and walked off stage. And just before the ribbon was cut, I looked back one last time. The backyard was empty. They had gone inside, closing the door to the house I built. But this time, it was me they couldn't block out. Because now, my name was on everything around them. Final chapter. The deed they forgot to read. 3 weeks after the grand opening, I received a letter from the city planning office. Routine paperwork confirming the final zoning transition for the surrounding residential lots. Attached was a map. It showed the new boundaries of the expanded industrial complex. And a faint dotted line running through the property my parents thought they still owned. I smiled. See, when I built that house at 24, I was naive about a lot of things. Love, loyalty, even blood. But not about land. The deed, the original one, had never been fully transferred to my father's name. Back then, he laughed and said, no need for paperwork between family. He was wrong. Years later, when he sold the house to my brother, they never checked the records. They didn't think they had to. Because to them, I was just the help. But I never forgot the legal clause at the bottom of the page. The original builder retains right of first refusal on all property transfer within a 5-mile zoning radius if said builder registers as a commercial entity within 10 years. They didn't understand what that meant. But I did. It meant the moment Ashfield Precision Systems was officially registered and the zoning map updated, I legally reclaimed not just the factory lot, Mom, but every surrounding parcel they sold or thought they owned, including the one they lived on. The next day, I sent them a letter. No threats, no anger, just a simple message. Effective immediately, your property falls under corporate ownership. You may continue residing as caretakers or relocate. No back rent will be collected. This is not revenge. This is closure. I never received a response. But my lawyer told me they vacated within the month, quietly, without dispute. And that house, I had it renovated, not into an office, not into a showroom, but into a training center for young mechanics from working-class backgrounds, the same kind of kid I used to be. And on the wall inside, framed in clean glass, is the original blueprint of the house. Underneath it, a single line engraved, built with hands that were never just anything. Epilogue. The street named after Greece. 6 months after the factory opened, the city sent a delegation to tour the grounds. They were impressed. Not just by the machinery or the clean energy systems, but by the people, dozens of young mechanics, welders, and builders who had been passed over by traditional careers. Kids who looked like I once did. Grease on their hands, hope in their eyes. The mayor pulled me aside after the tour. We've been considering renaming Industrial Avenue, your investment, your mentorship program. It's changed this district. I thought about it, not for pride, but for every moment my parents looked at my stained coveralls and said, "You'll never amount to anything in that grease." And so, a month later, the new signs went up. Griasoline Boulevard, named not for oil, but for every dream forged in the dirt. The grit, the forgotten corners of industry. My parents had mocked me for building with my hands. Now, their old address sat on a street that bore the very thing they thought made me less. And my brother, he applied for a job at the factory through a hiring agency. He never saw my name on the paperwork. I hired him, not out of mercy, but to remind myself, forgiveness doesn't always look like a hug. Sometimes it looks like a time card. And every morning, when he walks past the entrance, he sees the bronze plaque mounted above the door. In honor of every mechanic, every dreamer, every kid who wasn't born with a silver spoon, but still learned how to build a kingdom. I never spoke to my parents again, but I know they saw the headlines. I know they drove past the new street signs. And I know, somewhere deep down, they finally understood. I was never just a mechanic. I was the architect of my own redemption. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. If you are watching this video, comment below and tell us where you are watching this video from. Hit like if you crave justice and share this story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to this story, channel, because here, betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks and every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp, stay unbroken, stay tuned.